All right, folks, in the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and get started this evening. As you can tell by looking at one of the agendas, that we're going to be here for a while tonight, and so we've got a quorum, and we're going to move forward at this point in time. Be respectful of your time as well as ours as we move through the agenda this evening. This is a regularly called Greer Ciy Council meeting, called and convened this evening, June 11th, 2019. Having called the meeting to order, I'd like to ask if you would please stand while Councilmember Riley Bettis leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance. He will follow that then with an invocation for council.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Almighty God, thank you that you have blessed this city in so many ways. Give this council the clarity and wisdom to always honor you in our decisions. Help us to remember the most needy of us in our city, just as you have taught. And may the glory of all we achieve be to you. I pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Council, with that, we'll move to public forum. Public forum is a time that we set aside for citizens to express concerns in regards to items that are on our agenda. We have 3 people that have indicated that they would like to speak tonight in regards to items that will follow later in the regularly scheduled meeting. For those 3 folks that would like to address council this evening, the way that we do that is I will recognize you by name. I would ask that you come to the podium, and at the podium, if you will give us your name and address as a matter of record, the floor is yours at that point in time to address council. We'll start with the first name on the list, which is Eliza Godfrey. The floor is yours.
Evening. My name is Elisha. I know it's a weird one to try and read. And I'm 445 Alexander Road in Greer. I want to speak about the annexation in line item B. So that is 13.67 acres on the corner of Brushy Creek Road and Alexander Road. I think it's even for most of the residents on Alexander Road that we already have a traffic problem at that intersection, at the intersection of Brushy Creek and Alexander. In the past 6 months, there have been 2 major accidents at the intersection. I spoke to my county councilman today, Mike Barnes, who runs a wrecker service, and he said, oh yeah, I saw one of those, and that car had flipped multiple times. If we go R12, that would allow about 52 homes onto that property, 52 new homes. Let's just say that we're averaging 3 cars apiece in a modern home. So that's 150 new cars. Let's say they come in and out of the house at least twice a day. That's 300 visits from Alexander Road to Brushy Creek Road. That is not a good intersection, and 2 large trucks already cannot pass on Alexander Road. That area is not prepared for that. Brushy Creek just got townhomes a little farther up the road, and it's already too much for Bellshire, those townhomes, and then if we're going to add another 150 cars a day in that small section of Brushy Creek, we need improvement on Brushy Creek, which would be pretty tough to do. Improvement on Alexander, which would be not quite as tough, and the traffic light at Alexander. Not only from that side of Alexander, but there's trucking companies coming from the other side of Alexander, and multiple times a day there's large transfer trucks turning onto Brushy Creek, and they have to use both lanes to do it. If you go look at the right turn from Alexander onto Brushy Creek, you'll see that has been wallowed out by trucks, and they barely missed the power pole. And that Brushy Creek is just not prepared for another, and it's not prepared for what it has now. And it's certainly not prepared for another 150 cars, 300 trips, 450 trips a day at that intersection. So please take that into consideration when you consider annexation of this property.
Thank you, sir. Dennis Elmore is our next speaker.
I'm good, thank you.
All right. And our last speaker is Joe, and I believe that's Clarendon?
Sorry. Yes, my name is Joe Clary. 5 Park Block Drive, Greer is my address. So I am on the HOA. I'm the vice president of Lismore Park, which is the subdivision that Alexander runs into. And so, just to reiterate what Elisha was saying, the traffic is already crazy. It is used already as a cut-through for Riverside High School and most of the schools. Traffic continues to flow through there. So not only just it's residents that live in the area, they're cutting through our neighborhood. And add another 150, 130 cars would just add a lot more traffic. It would endanger the neighborhood. We have lots of kids that play in that neighborhood. We already have a problem with traffic where we had to even get law enforcement to come in and sit in our neighborhood because people even fly down that hill. And we have kids that play on that hill. I mean, they're going 45 miles an hour. Adding this, also it just tears down what Greer is about. In the city of Greer, people want to come here. They want to continue to come here. I'm from Charleston, and if you look at the way that has progressed, and it's not the way it used to be, and that's why, I mean, there are people that continue to go there. But Greer is known for Greer's known for its ability to be a little bit more on the rural side or the countryside. I wouldn't say that, but it's cleaner to where homes are not packed in. And I realize I live in a neighborhood that does that right now, but I just feel like it would not help the aesthetic look of Greer. That is, and I forget the ordinance in which, whatever ordinance B, I believe, is what he was talking about. So the increased traffic, and I have seen the wrecks there as well. It is a bad intersection overall. And so, just representing the neighborhood as a whole, it would be bad for our neighborhood, traffic-wise, and already the people that cut through in our schools are already getting, I guess you'd say, more overgrown, especially in the Riverside District. So, thank you very much for your time, and please take that in consideration as well. Not only just that intersection, which I don't want to repeat, but just the traffic that flows through Lismore Park subdivision is already heavy. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. That concludes our public forum. Council will move to the minutes of the council meeting. You have in your packet the minutes from the May 28th meeting. I'll entertain a motion that they be received.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Earlwood?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Yes. Mayor Danner?
Yes. Council, our presentation tonight is by Mr. David Seifert, who is our Chief Financial Officer. He comes before us this evening to present his annual report. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. First, I'd like just to say thank you for allowing this opportunity to bring the results of operations and activities for the Finance Department and the Information Technology Department. Excuse me. I have provided a slide deck at your desk there. Contains these slides as well as a project sheet for the Information Technology Department that contains more information that we're going to cover tonight in the slide presentation. So as you review those, please feel free to contact us later if any questions do come up. So as we move forward through the presentation, I've divided this presentation into 4 parts, divided by functional area. So I'll be presenting a high-level city economic overview as well as some departmental information. And then Susan, who now serves as our budget and audit manager, will come and present some data that is very specific to the budgets and audits of the city and those results. Following Susan, Katrina will come up, who now serves as our accounting manager, will present results related to specifically the business office and our projects for the department. And then lastly, Jim, our IT manager, will come and present information for the IT department. At its highest level, the city has its vision and mission, and we're very familiar with that. And as it relates to the finance department, that is for us to provide effective and efficient services, and we do that and demonstrate that through our fiscal responsibility. There are 6 initiatives that are in the strategic plan that relate to the finance department. Those specifically are the financial condition, unassigned fund balance, revenue over or under expenditures, personnel budget, debt margin, and significant material findings in the audit. If you reference the strategic plan, you'll see those indicators are all at or above the target that is set for those initiatives. And if you would like more detail related to those strategic plan initiatives, the strategic plan can be found on our website and has a lot more detail related to these items as well as the entire strategic plan. Each year we do like to highlight the new employees that we have each year, if there are any. And this year we only have one new employee, and that is Nick LePage, who served with us as an intern a number of years ago for a couple of years while he was in college and finishing his degree. We were able to bring him back on board this year as an employee, and we're certainly glad to have him back on board with us. I'm sure you're all familiar with him by this time. Highlighting our organizational chart, this has changed this year. So first, again, I'd like to say thank you for adopting and approving the addition of our budget and audit manager. We previously had two functional areas where we divided all the responsibilities in the finance department. Adding that budget and audit manager, we were able to create three functional areas, which then allowed us to focus, have more focused responsibilities in line without having to do as many multiple different disciplines. So you see here we have the three lines. We have the budget and audit manager, which is more programmatic in nature, covering budget, audit, accounts payable, purchasing. Then we have the accounting manager responsible for the business office downstairs, and then of course the IT manager managing the IT side of the department. Continuing with highlighting our employees, we have 4 employees this past year that have been serving on state boards, board of directors, or have achieved honors. So first we'll start with Katrina Woodruff. She earned her master's degree in public administration. And then Katrina, along with Tim Roberts, have completed the education program that's associated with the Business License Officers Association of South Carolina. Jim Ridgell served his last year as his term as the past president with the Municipal Technology Association of South Carolina. And then finally myself, last year I finished as the chairman of the Other Retirement Benefit Employers Trust. That's the group that handles post-employment retirement benefits for the state, or for the member cities of the state. Currently serving on the Municipal Finance Officers, Clerks, and Treasurers Association as its vice president. And then this group last year also nominated and voted me the Professional Achievement Award. It's a very distinguished award that's offered by this group. Very proud of that. So we have education and training is valued very highly in the city, very highly in our department, and this is exemplified here through these employees. Each year we do track, obviously, certain lines of revenue and elements of our economy. So we pull out certain lines that tend to represent the local economy of Greer. And that's what's represented here on this first slide. First, we're going to start with building projects and value of construction. Through the years, in 2009 through 2010, 11, and 12, we're coming out of the recession. And you can see our housing starts, commercial projects, and total building projects were remaining fairly level. And then each of those creating or resulting in a level construction value. But hitting 2012, 2013, you start to see those numbers increasing. Finishing up with 2018, each of those line items, housing starts, commercial projects, total building projects, setting new record numbers for the city of Greer. All of that resulting in value of construction in excess of $350 million of development. Again, setting the new high record for the city. Moving to permit fees and hospitality taxes. As you can see, again, through the recession, those remain fairly stable. Hitting 2012 and 13 is when you began to see that growth and increases that have continued since that time. If you look at the growth that is being experienced in hospitality taxes, we are currently experiencing a sustained growth of about 4.5%. And last, we'll look at property taxes and business license taxes. Again, similarly to the previous slides, they were stable through the recession, and then at the end of the session started to increase. So looking at these, what conclusion can we draw? Well, first, we're presently experiencing a strong local economy. These line items that we watch have continued to increase over the last several years, but we do watch them for changes, downturns, upticks, so we can help decide and gauge what operational adjustments we may need to do in the city. So as part of watching these line items, we very closely watch the pipeline of activity coming through the Building and Development Standards Department, as well as the Greer Development Corporation. And if we start to see some activity there that may start to decrease, and then we have to start planning, if there is truly a downturn, what we may need to adjust operationally. But again, what's the final conclusion? Right now, we're experiencing a very strong local economy that continues to grow. So as we continue forward, I'm going to turn this over to Susan, and she will continue with data that is more specific to our budgets and audits and those results of operations.
The city continues to post great operational results, as you can see here in the changes in fund balance position and how it's increased over the last 8 years. In fiscal year 2018, the unreserved fund balance is at an all-time high of $16.2 million. The blue line in the graph represents our 35% fund target balance, which at the time was $8.9 million, and we exceeded that with actual fund balance at 63.64%. As we move on to fiscal year 19, the new fund balance target is $9.6 million. So with the $16.2 million in the unassigned fund balance and an estimate at this time of $2.4 million, we'll have a total in excess of $9 million. This is important as we anticipate spending $7 million to $8 million on the streetscape, parking garage, and Center for the Arts projects. These next two slides are related to the city's growth and financial impact. You can see that over 10 years, the budget, which is the blue line, has remained fairly stable, increasing by a little over $5 million, or 28%, while the assessed value, the pink line, has increased over $35 million, or 40%. This shows the assessed value is growing at a rate 12% faster than our budget. Now, as we look at our population, represented by the blue line, the city has increased approximately 16.7% in the last 10 years, while millage, represented by the pink line, has remained unchanged since 2011. This population growth drives housing starts as well as commercial development, which in turn increases assessed value in the city. This growth information in part shows how the city has met our operational needs while not increasing taxes. And Katrina will continue with more business office information.
Okay, this slide highlights our program transactions. Our program transactions include all items processed by our clerks, accounts payable, accounts receivable, payroll, and purchasing. As you can see, there is a direct correlation between the city's growth and our transaction activity. At first glance, it looks as though our activity has decreased. However, if you recall, in 2017, there were 2 major hailstorms. These hailstorms contributed to the large increase in transaction activity for that year, which skewed the transaction count. Over a 5-year period, we have experienced approximately 31% growth, while our overall growth for 10 years calculates to almost 70%. Looking at our full-time equivalent, it appears that our staff has decreased the number of transactions processed. However, the graph only depicts the city's staff of full-time employee equivalents of 5.5 and does not represent the 2 temporary employees that were hired to meet the extraordinary increase in transactions due to the 2 hailstorms in 2017. With that said, each clerk processed an average of 4,200 transactions in 2018. And looking at a 10-year period, In 2009, the clerks were processing on average 1,850 transactions each year, versus in 2018, the average was in excess of 4,200 each. Therefore, over a 10-year period, there has been an increase of 127% in transactions per employee. This slide represents a list of our projects. We completed our conversion to ADP, E-Time, and Payroll, and we continue with implementing the Human Resource module with ADP. We just finished implementing our financial software, Edmunds, and we are continuing to test and implement that with Trackit software for the building department, which is coming hopefully soon. And we continue with our digitization of our financial records. And next, we'll have Jim to go over the IT.
This up a little bit. All right. Thank you very much. Again, keeping in mind our vision and mission that we have in mind, some of the driving factors for why we have the technology is, of course, making sure the staff has adequate and efficient access to the information, making sure we're maintaining the public safety, and providing the recovery and legal compliance issues that we have. All of this applies, of course, to our service areas of the accessibility, our hardware and software, the networking that we have, the security, and, of course, keeping the support services going as well. This year we started off with 64 projects on our board. Many of these projects this year were a lot larger, so we didn't get as many done, but again, because they were a lot larger, there's a lot more involved with them. But we did complete 28 projects this year, and we currently have 19 of these large projects that we are currently working on. With the increase of staff and technology needs, we're now up to 499 endpoints that we're serving, which an endpoint can be a computer, a cell phone, a tablet, a laptop, whatever that may happen to be, any different types of technology. In serving these endpoints and the needs of our employees, it has generated a little over 1,600 support services tickets, of which 89% of those we have completed within 4 hours or less. Knocking still on wood this year, we haven't had any network outages, thank goodness. But we did have 3 network interruptions, which were part of completing these projects. 2 of which we had some downtime for replacing some of the switches that we have here at City Hall, both the first floor and second floor. And then finally the network upgrades and the switches that we did at the police and court building. The projects that were done, we've broken down basically into 4 different sections. Currently we have 6 projects that we have not yet started. The majority of them are pretty much centering around some of the written policies that we need as we upgrade the technology and move forward with security measures and so forth. The next section is our gathering information section. We currently have 11 projects that we're currently getting information on. And this can include information such as getting price quotes, looking at what are the possible alternative solutions for things that we're having to do. Some of our larger projects that we're working on are the security cameras for various areas. One very significant one, backup and recovery methods, and how our server virtualization can be upgraded to improve performance and efficiency there. Currently in process, we have 16 projects that we are getting quotes on. We're scheduling dates for installation and doing some additional testing on as well. Some of these larger projects that we're working on of these 16, of course, include, the conversion of some of the software projects such as the Civic Rec and Civic Plus, the Trackit SQL Server to help the Building Development Standards Division software improvements happen there and efficiencies. A very large plan that encompasses not just IT but every department here in the city is our disaster recovery and business continuity plan. And another thing we're implementing is segmenting the park wireless so that it is on its own network and not part of our normal everyday production network. And of course, the new file server that we're now beginning to implement to move over to the newer, faster technology, as well as updating the security of who can access that information. And if we have to restore something from backup, we can do that with the right permissions. So again, all of that leading into the safety and security of all of our services. Here we go. Of the 29 projects that we have completed, some of these were pretty large and involved. One, of course, being our antivirus software that we upgraded. We were using Trend Micro. We are now using a program called Cylance, which is a more of a next generation type software process. We had to get that antivirus rolled out on pretty much all technology devices around the city, get it to do a quick scan, get it functioning, and looking at what resources are being used, what programs are trying to be run, which ones should we allow, which ones do we need to block. So very detailed and involved process there. Of course, as mentioned earlier, our Edwards financial software package. Our switch conversions. We had to upgrade our switches to also meet the SLED requirements for our fingerprinting and booking PC used in the detention system. As we brought that system online and connected into the SLED network, we had to make sure that our network met all the CGIS and SLED requirements in order for us to be able to transmit that information to SLED electronically rather than on paper. In doing so, that required us to upgrade our network switches and some other security measures, which we have now accomplished and are transmitting electronically. Some of the future projects that we have going on, there's quite a good list of projects we have going, but highlighting some of these, again, are going to be some of the changing software systems that we have in managing our ERP, our maintenance, the permitting and customer service software side of things. And of course, security is always going to be a huge, huge factor. We've got to keep the bad guys out, keep our data, our network safe, and allowing us to recover. Heaven forbid we should happen to get hit with something. We need to be able to recover quickly and continue functioning. So these are some of the projects that we have on our table that we're going to be looking at, meeting and updating, and of course replacing any outdated equipment that we need to replace in order to maintain this level of security and functionality. And I'll turn this back over to you, David.
So I'd just like to say thank you to Jim, Katrina, and Susan for helping me out here. This is a very quick summary of what we've covered in the last year in the finance and the technology departments. So I'd be happy to take any questions you may have at this time.
Council, floor is open for questions or comments.
David, on elements of the economy, property tax, and business license, where blue line indicates tax revenue, of course it's showing an increase over the years. You gave us the percentage of growth on the hospitality tax. What about the tax revenues as a whole that's indicated on that blue line? What you got a percentage?
I don't have the actual calculation, but looking at it here, from 8 million to 12 million will be just over 50% growth over that same period.
Others? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And just as a final, I'd like to say thank you to you, Mayor and Council, for your leadership and for the way that you have led the city and allowed the budgets and the staff to perform for you as we move forward through the city. Thank you.
We thank your department for all the hard work that you do in keeping us straight and getting us awards all the time.
Thank you.
Our administrator will follow with his report. Mr. Jennings, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, sir. Only a couple of items. I'll be addressing you a little later in the agenda, a little more extensively. So a couple of items to share with you. It was reported to me a little earlier today that we did start our summer camp program here in the community yesterday. Our camps are completely filled. We have 125 children participating in all of our locations. And so you will see them being transported by bus. You'll see them in our parks. You'll see them in many places over the community over the coming months as we work through our summer camp program. Glad to have our leadership of teachers and advisors that work with them as camp counselors over the summer. It is a great experience. We get great reviews, great remarks on that. There's always a waiting list. It's always full. So very, very proud of what we're accomplishing with our summer camp program. The other items just to share with you as a calendar reminder, we will be participating with our local Chamber of Commerce next Tuesday evening. That's June 18th. Tuesday evening is the Public Safety Appreciation Dinner. So look forward to that taking place next week. Would love for you to be able to join us. If your attendance plans will allow that, let us know, and we'll certainly make sure that we have you down for that. Busy time for us as we continue to work through our summer programming with things like our Tunes in the Park program, our Thursday night movies. Those have started for us already, and we're having a great turnout and interest in those programs. So very, very pleased with the offerings that we have here downtown in the park this summer. Again, other items I'll share with you a little bit later in the agenda. Certainly available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Council, we'll move to appointments of boards and commissions, the first of which is the Board of Architectural Review. We are indeed in need at this point of a historian following Joetta's Hyatt's resignation. Mr. Grant?
I know the staff is working on that, but and they are talking to one person, but no finalization yet.
Okay, thank you, sir. In regards to appointees to the Greenville-Spartanburg International Airport Environs Planning Commission, Mr. Burley is serving in that capacity at present, and his term expires in 6/30. We'll have an answer in regards to his continued service at our next meeting in time for before that term expires. Then on the Planning Commission, we have an opening in District 5, and I believe we have a recommendation for that seat made by Councilman Bettis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a pleasure for me to bring to you tonight the nomination of Michael Wright, and he's with us tonight. Michael, if you want to stand up and be recognized. I had a good meeting with Michael, and I appreciate the staff bringing him to my attention. We have a bit of a connection with the house he lives in. It's and a lot of you will remember my uncle living in that house on Miller Street. That's where he lives now, and he's done a fantastic job on it. He's highly qualified. He's a Clemson graduate, but I overlooked that. So maybe he'll outgrow that one day. But I would like to place Michael Wright's name in the nomination for the Planning Commission Board.
We'll consider that a motion. Do I hear a second? Second. Have a motion and second. Floor is open for discussion or questions. Hearing none, Ms. Duncan.
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Yes. Mayor Danner?
Yes. Thank you for your service, sir. You will now get to start going to school. So, your work has only just begun. So, but thank you. We appreciate it. An important committee or commission in this city does require some training and expertise as we handle a lot of situations that require an understanding not only of our planning process and long-term plans, but also of state and federal law as well, too, as we review applications in regards to those new elements that are coming to our community. With that, then, we're going to move on to items of new business. The first of which, you're welcome to stay, Mr. Grant, but I'm not sure how long it's going to be before you'll be up. So, in items of new business, we have the first reading of ordinance number 19-2019. This is an ordinance amending Chapter 54, Manufactured Housing, Article 2, Manufactured Homes, Section 54-31, Permits Required, to eliminate the annual permit fee. This comes with a recommendation from the Finance Department in regards to this code and change, and we will get more information from Mr. Seifert, our Chief Financial Officer. Sir.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. A few years ago, you will remember, we went through our code and removed most of our fees that were codified into a comprehensive fee schedule. This was one of those that was left in the code and not moved into the comprehensive fee schedule. And then later, as we've had some discussions, this line item for us is a very minor revenue line and does not carry any enforcement related to the annual permit fee. So this ordinance removes it from the ordinance and eliminates the fee altogether, so it will not appear in either the code or ordinances or in the comprehensive fee schedule.
Council, the first reading of ordinance number 19-2019 comes with a recommendation from staff. I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Have a motion and second. Floor is open for discussion. Questions? Comments? Hearing none, Ms. Duncan.
Mr. Earwood?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Yes. Mayor Danner?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council, we move to item B, which is the first reading of ordinance number 20-2019. This is an ordinance to provide for the annexation of property owned by Laverne Miller, Darlene Dawkins, Denise Barnett, and Jeffrey Thompson, located at 3006 Brushy Creek Road, by 100% petition, and to establish a zoning classification of R12 for said property. Mr. Grant is here with us this evening to address ordinance number 20-2019. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll do my best rendition of planning manager. This ordinance 20-2019 is an annexation and zoning request for the property located at 3006 Brushy Creek Road. The parcel for annexation consists of 13.667 acres. The property is proposed to be zoned R12, single-family residential. The Planning Commission will conduct a public hearing on June 17th, 2019 for the zoning of this parcel. The particulars are on the screen.
For the purpose of discussion, I'll entertain a motion to receive ordinance 20-2019.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Floor is open for discussion or questions.
Mr. Mayor, I would just say that I did indeed go out and look at the property. And of course, we all know that area is much like the entire city. There are traffic problems. Unfortunately, we don't have control over most of the roads out in that area, especially Brushy Creek. And I do sympathize with their traffic concerns. It'll be interesting to see what the Planning Commission says. I would urge everyone who spoke tonight to go to the Planning Commission and vent, tell them your concerns. But I do, at this point, I do share their concerns that the roads out there are overwhelmed and there's a need for improvement.
In that same vein, let me explain where we are. This ordinance this evening is in regards to annexation of the property. You were afforded an opportunity to speak tonight, and that has been noted, but the opportunity that you may want to most prevail yourself to is going to be the Planning Commission meeting, which will be held on the 17th, which is now in between our second reading. This will take 2 readings, so there will be another opportunity to appear before this board based on a recommendation coming from the Planning Commission. Have a motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion or questions at this point in time.
When it goes to the Planning Commission, that's when they will be addressing the needs for the road conditions and et cetera, or having traffic studies and things like that. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, all of those things will be discussed at that time.
Like turning lanes or widening or whatever possibly I know that Brushy Creek is a state road. And then Alexander, is that county or state? County? Yeah, I think maybe it'd be county. I think it would be county. So both of those would be addressed after, at the Planning Commission for their request to have that done.
They'll be discussed. Ultimately, the county and the state has responsibility for ownership, maintenance, or any funding of any improvements.
As some information for the public, there was some information, someone spoke about school system. Just to let you know, any government entity that is involved with development within our city limits is invited in along with the contractor developer. Everybody involved is going to have their hands either be affected by or hands working on the project. And if there are going to be issues with infrastructure as like electrical, water, sewer, the school districts are always invited, and they give us input, and so they will also be there to give information about what their current plans and long-term plans are as far as schools. And just another note that I'd like to say is, yes, the city develops densely, and that is what we try to do. So trying to prevent sprawl. Unfortunately, in this state, there's a lot of things that we have to fight against, and then also the issue with roads, substandard roads. We deal with that all the time. A lot of the roadways we don't have control over. So I hear you. I understand your concerns, and I live off Brushy Creek, so I understand all the traffic.
Mr. Grant, the way this is going to be designed, is the traffic going to flow through Alexander, or is it going to have access directly to Brushy Creek, or do we know at this point?
Not positive right now. We have no plans. I've seen no plans. I'm not sure if Kelly has. She hasn't mentioned the connection points, but I haven't seen any plans yet.
Do we have any idea, I know it's R12, do we have any idea how many houses are going to be able to fit on this track right now?
No, sir, but I can find out.
I think somebody said it was somewhere in that range.
I saw a preliminary plan, a contractor out there one day on site, and it wasn't on plan. I think they did that because if you make any improvements to go to Brushy Creek, the DOD is going to force you to line Brushy Creek.
The floor is closed for discussion right now.
There is one other thing I would like to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, either council or Mr. Greer. When zoning decisions are made, traffic count cannot be used to finalize a zoning decision. We've had this discussion before.
It cannot be a basis of zoning.
Okay.
Council, the action before us tonight is the first reading of ordinance number 20-2019, which is relative to the annexation of the property. zoning and type of zoning will be determined based on the hearing on the 17th and the planning meeting. Other questions or comments at this point in time? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Earwood,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
No.
Miss Albert, Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, the first reading of ordinance number 21-2019 is before you. Comes to you as an ordinance to provide for the annexation of properties owned by Alan Cullum located at 997 and 999 Victor Hill Road by 100% petition, and to establish a zoning classification of I-1 for said properties. This is the annex and zoning request for the properties there on Victor Hill. This is a 5.73 acre tract is proposed for I-1. Mr. Grant, additional information in regards to first reading of ordinance number 21-2019?
No, sir. As you said, this is an annexation for property at 997, 999 Victor Hill. It's 5.73 acres. It is proposed for I-1 industrial. The Planning Commission will conduct a public hearing on June 17th for this parcel, and I have some particulars here on the slide showing the location, zoning, surrounding zoning, and picture. And that's all I have this time.
Entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion. Go ahead.
Was this was there an old sawmill on this site? Do you recall?
I'm not sure. I know there's some structures on the site. I'm not sure if it's a sawmill.
It was Mr. Hamby's property.
Okay.
The record
Okay.
service. Others? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Earwood,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, the first reading of ordinance number 22-2019. This is an ordinance to change the zoning classification of property owned by Lena Elmore located at 317 Parker Street from C2 commercial to RM2 residential multifamily. This is a rezoning request for a parcel located at 317 Parker Street. The owner is requesting the rezoning from C2 to RM2, which is multifamily residential. This property was zoned C2 in 1979 and has been used as a residence before the zoning of the property and was considered non-conforming. The applicant recently converted a detached garage into an additional single-family residence on the property, which is why she is now requesting rezoning to RM2 multifamily. Any new or additional information or updates to that? Mr. Grant?
Well, there will be a public hearing, there was a public hearing, excuse me. The Planning Commission conducted a public hearing on May 20th for the rezoning of these parcels, and the Planning Commission recommended to approve the request. And I have some particulars here that shows the parcel and the zoning surrounding the parcel. And pictures on the left is previous, and then on the right is current. And no further information.
Council, item D is ordinance number 22-2019. I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion. Comments?
I did have a question. It says that it was converted to single family. Is it, we're going with the RM2 because it's all on the same piece of property?
Yes.
Looks like it's separated by a wall or something, but it's the same parcel apparently.
I mean, is there any reason why we just don't make it two parcels and make both single family?
I think it's one owner. That wasn't the request, but we can check into it and get back with you.
A show of hand, is the owner of the property or a representative of the owner of the property with us? Can you give us information in that regard, sir? Okay, if you want to come to the podium, please, sir, it'd be a benefit to us.
My name is Dennis Elmore. I'm the husband of Elena Elmore. She's sick this evening, couldn't be with us. I live at 325 Half Rock Circle, City of Lyman, Greer. What can I answer for you folks?
Well, just, you converted a garage, and it looks like there's two single-family properties there, and it's, but it looks like it's just one parcel, and it's C2, and you're looking for the RM2.
Yeah, I didn't want to split hairs on the paper. The one on the left has actually been my business for the last 7 years. I've been paying for a business license that's been there. I don't really consider it a garage. It was a flower shop in the 70s. It's been my plumbing company for the last 7 years. But we did do a lot of updates, to be obvious. So I'm not, arguing that. It is one sewer, one water line, just one parcel. My father owned it, my grandparents owned it before that. The brick wall was just separated. I don't know why it was installed. It was long before I owned it. I think my dad had somebody who lived in earn some money and just put a brick wall up. There's no concrete or anything in it. And it's on both sides. So it doesn't show the left side. Well, it does there in the door picture. It just separates the properties, or property, for weeds.
And so your intent is to rent that out to...
I would like to. I'm at the end of my life as a plumber company. I'm 55, my knees are giving out. And so rather than having a business there, I thought we could rent it because we rent the gray house in the picture now. I didn't know about the zoning or any of that. So we figured, we'll rent this house 50 feet away. We could rent this one just the same. And then we'll come to find out different. But we're looking to comply with everything and whatever we need to do.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Others, council? Questions? Comments? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert?
Yes.
Mayor Danner?
Yes. Council, next item before us is the first reading of ordinance number 24-2019, an ordinance amending Chapter 38, Historic Preservation, Article 2, Board of Architectural Review, Section 3892, process to eliminate the final certification fee from the City of Greer Code of Ordinances and to transfer the fee to the comprehensive fee schedule. Building and Development Standards respectfully submits the following recommendation to the City Council of Greer to amend its Code of Ordinances, Chapter 38, Historic Preservation, Article 2, Board of Architectural Review, Section 38 through 92 process. Mr. Grant, any additional or new information in that regard, sir?
No, sir, not new, but as kind of follows what David earlier on his, one of the things earlier, we'll just move it out of the city code over to the fee schedule.
Comes as a recommendation from staff. I'll entertain a motion to receive first reading of ordinance number 24-2019.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Floor is open for additional discussion. Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert?
Yes.
Mayor Danner?
Yes. Council, first reading of ordinance number 25-2019 is before you this evening. This is an ordinance amending Chapter 14 of the Building and Building Regulations, Article 1 in general, Section 14.8, occupancy permits, to eliminate the occupancy permit fee from the City of Greer Code and Ordinances and transfer the fee to the comprehensive fee schedule. Building and Development Standards Department respectfully submits the following recommendation to the City of Greer and to amend its Code of Ordinances for Chapter 14, Building and Building Regulations, Article 1 in general, Section 14-8, occupancy permits. Mr. Grant, any new or additional information in that regard?
No, sir, just similar to the last one, move it out of the city code over to the fee schedule.
Council, this comes from a recommendation from staff. I'll entertain a motion to receive first reading of ordinance number 25-2019.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion. Questions? Comments? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert?
Yes.
Mayor Danner?
Yes. Thank you, sir. Council, as we prepare to move to the first reading of ordinance number 23-2019, you will notice a change here in the building. It is about this time in the evening that we are normally putting our sunglasses on, but we don't have to. This evening, as the sun sets behind us, we have the opportunity to tip our hat tonight to somebody. It looks like they've taped a poster board up there for us. We will assume that that is temporary and that something more appropriate for this building is on its way in some regard, maybe included in our budget ordinance tonight. So,
It is now.
First reading of the ordinance number 23-2019. This is the City of Greer budget ordinance for fiscal year 2019-20. Mr. Driggers, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, sir. Members of council, we were able to, contained in your packet is the budget ordinance for 2019-2020. Also included in your package is the comprehensive fee schedule, both of which we are asking that you adopt through the ordinance for first reading this evening. As we would move past first reading, we certainly would have an opportunity to gather any additional information you may have relative to any of the line items that are contained in the supplement that we sent to you, I believe Thursday or Friday, I can't remember the date, but that information was emailed to you, as well as hard copies were provided to you here in your mailbox here at City Hall, and copies of those are provided on your desk here this evening as well. I wanted to spend a couple of moments giving a little bit of a narrative relative to the budget that you have in front of you. Of course, you have the general fund budget, what we call Fund 11, as well as all other fund budgets for us, including our contingency fund, our recreation program fund, capital equipment fund, debt service fund, hospitality taxes fund, stormwater fund, real property fund, sanitation services fund, facilities use fund, and also our road paving fund. All of those budgets provided for you as well. Each of those budgets are for our use for 2019-2020, effective July 1st, 2019, running through June 30th of 2020. In accordance with state statute and with our city ordinances, these budgets are balanced with all corresponding revenues and expenses. These budgets do not require any increase to our millage rate. There are minor adjustments within the comprehensive fee schedule, and we're certainly glad to cover those with you individually as well, as we could take a look at that. We did use our adopted community master plan, our comprehensive plan, and our strategic plan. This, along with your annual planning retreat and workshops that we hold with our staff, these serve as our guide to assist in preparing and recommending the budgets that you have before you. We do continue to use a strategic methodology to analyze our various departments of the city, and we do this on a line-by-line item basis. We attempt to identify those service delivery areas that have been identified by council and communicated to you through your constituents as reported as important to the community. We annually review our core services and the related expenses in preparing those budgets that you have before you. During the prior year budget process, you may recall that we utilized a two-year budget format. Revenues and expenses are consistent with the second year projections that we provided to you 1 year ago. Only minor adjustments were necessary, but for the unanticipated increase in cost to our health insurance program, we were able to present that to you in a different format at your last meeting. And of course, as we would move forward from this point forward, we have resumed the 1 year annual format at the direction of council. This budget has an increase in corresponding revenues and expenses of $2,414,219 over the prior year budget, or the budget that we're currently operating in. This amount reflects an overall increase in our operational expenses of 8.51% compared to the prior year adopted budget. Prior year budget was $25,965,208. The proposed budget is $28,379,427. Millage rate remains at 97.8 mills, of which 14.79 mills are required for the satisfaction of debt service, and 83.01 mills are required for general operations of the city. Estimated value of 1 mill at 100% collection would be $143,006. I do think it's important to note that while the budget reflects an 8.51% increase from the prior year or previous year, please note that we recognize that we have remained extremely conservative in our projections as compared to the estimated current year-end projections. Our actual realized revenue has exceeded our projections in the past fiscal year, and we expect that that will continue in the year of this proposed budget. Therefore, we are projecting income and corresponding expenditures based on expected rather than trend or modified trend analysis. When considering the CPI plus growth standard, which is typically what is referred to us by state statute, CPI plus growth, the overall increase to the prior year is less than 3% increase. And this is funded by increases to our tax base and to new development within our community. One of the concerns that we continue to have relative to our budget is that which is state aid. There have been some significant stabilization to state aid this past year, but nonetheless, we are continuing to reduce our reliance on state aid or aid to subdivision. We're reducing that by an additional 10% this year, as we have previously been instructed by council to do. We do appropriate those excess revenues to capital, to fund capital and non-recurring expenses. One of the things that we want to make sure that we bring to your attention, that local municipal associations, South Carolina, and also state franchise and business license collections generate $7,924,000 in our upcoming fiscal year. This accounts for 27.92% of our total revenues. It is imperative that we continue to communicate with our legislative delegations relative to the importance of these revenue streams and the impact that there would be upon our citizens if there were changes to the allowance of those revenue streams here at the local level. Relative to our employees, obviously our employees continue to be our most valuable resource, and they are indeed the single most effective tool in managing our cost resources. Our employees continue to step up, and they offer ideas and suggestions on how we can manage our budget and how we can do more with less. They're creative, and they're committed to getting the job done right, and they're committed to doing that in the most effective manner possible. Training and emphasis on quality customer service and ethics has become part of our culture within our organization. Our employees embrace it, they promote it, and I'm very proud of Team Greer and what they've been able to accomplish. We exceed expectations daily. Results of our most recent community surveys continue to indicate support for our employees and the value that they provide to our taxpayers. It's important to note that back in 2014-15, we conducted a comprehensive compensation and classification study. During that study, City Council identified strategies to implement that program and provided recommendations from that study to maintain the integrity of the system. We've been able to do that since the 2015 year moving forward. The plan itself provided parity, equity, allowed us to compare within our upstate region, within municipalities across our state, within comparison groups that we have across South Carolina. Merit is the primary attribute that we look for when we're considering any type of salary increases for our employees, whether that's in a CPI adjustment, a step system. But inside this system, we are providing, inside this recommendation, we are providing for a 2.44% CPI increase, again, that would be distributed only on a merit basis. Due to significant market shifts low unemployment and competition, this budget appropriates resources for a new compensation and classification study. I want to make this note that while I believe that there are many shifts in the marketplace relative to compensation and benefits for many of our positions, I am most concerned about those that are reflective of our public safety team members, especially those within our police department. This is due to adjustments made by other area agencies in recent years, and most recently by the Greenville County Sheriff's Department. The comp and class study that's provided for in this budget will identify any disparities which may exist and will identify a plan moving forward to address this issue. Again, I think it's one of our most pressing concerns as we would move forward in a new budget. This budget does allow for us to continue our employee bonus pool program. As you may recall, that is a bonus pool that is based on organizational financial performance and the individual's length of service, and of course merit, always considering merit. We were able to award these bonuses during the past 5 years, and it has had a positive impact to our employees, and it demonstrates our commitment to our employees and provides incentives for them to strive for efficiency and effectiveness. If we're able to award those are typically done during our employee appreciation event each year prior to Christmas. I do believe that by implementing the recommendations of the previous compensation study, that we have been able to very intentionally, very strategically identify increases to our employees' base salaries provided on Consumer Price Index, or CPI. We've been able to do that also through administering steps within grade for those employees. That has continued to be a competitive advantage that we've had here in the marketplace, and we do think that that's the appropriate way for us to continue to move forward. The budget provides for hiring 7.5 new full-time equivalent employees, allows for 1 full-time building inspector, the reclassification from a part-time to full-time permit technician, both of which would be in our Building and Development Standards Department. But it also allows for a full-time grounds maintenance supervisor and the reclassification from part-time to full-time for a recreation assistant, and also the reclassification from part-time to full-time for 1 custodian, the 3 of those positions all being within our recreation department. The budget also provides for 1 public services worker 2 within our public services department, 1 full-time victims advocate, and 1 full-time detention officer within the police department, and also a full-time communications coordinator within the administration department, along with a part-time jury coordinator within the courts department. All of these positions were identified 1 year ago as we were looking at our personnel requirements over the 2-year period. Changes by the South Carolina State Legislature to the state retirement system continues to require that we provide additional resources for funding our state retirement system through our regular retirement system, South Carolina retirement system, as well as the police officers' retirement systems. That is at a 1%, an additional 1% this year, going to 15.56% and 18.24%, respectively, for non-public safety and public safety employees. That will continue to increase by an additional 1% a year through July of 2022, where we will actually go to a peak of 18.56% for the South Carolina retirement system and 21.24% in the police officers' retirement system. Employees are currently at their maximum amounts, 9% for employees in SCRS and 9.75% for those in PORS. So all of our employees are currently at those caps. Again, ours will continue to increase by 1% a year through July of 2022. One of the most significant changes for us this year in our budget is relative to our health insurance costs. Again, we had an opportunity to spend some time at your last meeting talking about the effects of that and what was causing that in our cycle this year. We were able to enjoy 8 years without any increases to funding requirements of premiums from our employees. We've been able to absorb those increases for new employees and any type of administrative costs in those as we've continued to move forward. We do continue to provide our employee coverage at 100% for our team members, and we also do a split of 80-20 for family-dependent coverage, with the city covering 80% of those costs and the employee covering 20%. The increases this year do require that we recommend that we pass along to our employees an increase in that dependent coverage, that we provide 3 levels of coverage. One is employee child, one is employee spouse, and the other is employee family. We are recommending an increase for employee child of an additional $11.07 per pay period, $15.41 for employee spouse, and $19.75 for employee family coverage per pay period. Those dollars are reflected in the budget that we have presented to you. We do remain committed to economic development. We fund 7.125% of our local business license collections to that program, and we do recommend that we continue to do that at that level. Road paving has continued to be successful for us in recent years. We were able to provide some additional funding in the budget this year for road paving as well. We also believe that we will have an opportunity to have additional match funds made available to us on the Greenville County side. So as you work through the budget, you'll see that $650,000 appropriated in that area. We believe that with the match program, we could receive as much as an additional $425,000 in match on top of that $650,000. So we're very, very excited about the opportunity to truly exceed the $1 million mark on street paving this year. Again, all of our expenses are reviewed line item by line item. They require departmental justification for each submission that you have before you. We used a process called priority-based budgeting. That was the methodology we used, and we did that in preparing all the expense portions of the budget. I have reviewed all of these with our departments. The budget that we have presented to you, it is the belief of each of those departments that they can operate within the plan of work that we've continued to communicate with them through your planning processes, that they can do that with the resources that this budget would make available to them. Again, it's important to note that the budget does not require an increase in ad valorem taxes, nor does it require any increase in business license fees. That information is contained within a transmittal letter that I will certainly make available to you this evening. Contained in that information as well is a breakdown of where our revenues come from and how our expenditures are expended. Most significant changes to the budget are identified in an addendum to that communication that I have for you. But I think I can sum that up. Again, the addendum in its entirety is contained in the information that I'll share with you this evening. But as we look at a budget that has an 8.51% increase, $2,514,219. It's very, very quickly you're able to see where that comes from. We have increased costs to our overall personnel operations because personnel is in excess of 63% of our total budget. There's an additional cost in this budget of $1.5 million relative to the 7.5 new positions, the 2.44% increase, the 1% requirement to fund the additional costs for retirement for public employees, as well as the steps that are allowed within the compensation plan. There is additional debt required of us in this plan for prior decisions that we've made of $322,000, and operational expenditures that are identified in the addendum of $509,000. That is $2,331,000. We have a loss of revenue from a couple of line items that accounts for $216,000. Those line items in itself, between personnel, debt, operations, and a loss of revenue, equals $2.5 million, which puts us right on par with the 8.51% that's required to fund the budget. Again, all of that information is contained within the transmittal. I'll go ahead and provide that to you now. Certainly available to answer any questions that you may have relative to what you have already seen. And then, of course, we would make ourselves available to review any line item within the budget that you may have any questions to, whether that is the general fund budget or that are any of the special fund budgets. We have that information. We can begin that process this evening. But what we had hoped is that with first reading, this would give you an opportunity to receive that general information. You've had the budgets now over the weekend. There may have been some expenditure that's kind of caught your eye and you want some additional information. We're certainly available to do that this evening as well. But that is the information we have to share with you at this point, and we are available to share as much information as you would like this evening as we continue to move forward. But I defer back to the direction and opinion of council of how you would like for us to proceed in this process.
Council, I think it may be appropriate. I know there's probably questions or comments relative to the budget, that we entertain a motion to receive for the purpose of discussion. So I'll offer this for first reading of ordinance number 23-2019. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
And a second. The floor is open for discussion or questions.
Mr. Driggers, I have not had time to scrutinize it as I will. I appreciate this information.
As we would expect.
I think the main thing that caught my eye is the increase in the revenue. I would just like to know where you gain the confidence to boost it like you do. Because under recommended, requested, and then approved, it took a jump there.
Well, Mr. Seifert, if you'll join us at the podium, we want to make sure that we're understanding a little bit different this year under that recommended and approved columns. So we want to make sure that we're explaining that, and we have not had an opportunity to do that collectively. So if you could share that.
Very good, thank you. Starting last year, as you recall, we presented a 2-year budget. And the way the software works is we have 3 columns to work with. We have the requested, recommended, and approved. And as is typical from our perspective, we bring to you a balanced budget as a proposal. Where we ended last year was a balanced budget in the recommended column. So those numbers were already in the software system, and so these numbers are left from where we were last year, so you could see how we were doing projections last year versus what we did this year. All of the adjustments and requests that we have brought to you tonight are in that approved column by itself. So between the requested and recommended column, that's what we projected 15 months ago, 12, 13, 14, 15 months ago. But then in the approved column, which is balanced tonight, we have taken into account the actual results of June 30th, 18 and year-to-date results that we are receiving right now on the revenue side, in particular to your question, and then re-projected that for next year, and that's where you're seeing some of that growth, is taking into account the actual results that we're experiencing today.
So you're saying that when the actual results are in for this current year, it's going to be obvious that the approved amount's not that big of a jump.
Correct.
Correct. And again, that was why we choose not to use trend analysis any longer, because it over projects for us, and so we're trying very intentionally to be more conservative. because we know that a slowdown in the economy could have great effect to us. So if we were using any of those types of methodologies, we literally would be projecting hundreds of thousands of dollars more. The good news in that is that I have every reason to believe that those would be accurate projections as well. But we intentionally project more conservatively because that's how council has asked us to do that. So we step back from that, and we would anticipate that the revenues would be higher than what we are actually budgeting. But that buffer is what allows us, if we should have the economy should slow down some.
Now, I think I've asked this question before, but when we experience, I'm not sure exactly how we calculate the employee bonus at the end of the year, but when we have a windfall of sorts from 26 million or whatever it ends up, is there some kind of a stopping point where we don't take that entire amount, or?
It's capped at 2% of salary.
There you go.
So we already have a cap.
Okay.
And so the fund can't grow any larger than 2% of the salary pool.
Okay.
It's always capped.
Thank you.
Others? On the revenue side, and this is not really the amount, it's the amount that caught my eye, but under recreational fees, we are going, let's see, from 17, 18, and then 2018, 19, we're dropping back $7,000. But there hasn't been any, our programs are still full.
Correct.
What's, it's, in the scheme of things, it's...
Right. What you're not seeing in that line item is one line item of revenue in particular to the rentals at Kids Planet were moved into the facilities fund and taken out of the general fund.
Okay. Then that's a big chunk for them.
But it's moved into the facilities fund to help maintain that park.
I see.
So instead of us depositing it to general fund, it really restricts it so that we continue to upfit and improve the facility.
Makes sense. Makes no sense. What are page 5, 7? I think that's still in revenue. Public safety contracts, 161,000. It's like doubling that.
That line item tracks the hiring of off-duty police officers and firemen to do third-party work for churches, communities, other agencies. And they contract that through the city, and it comes in, and then it flows through us into their payroll.
And because that's state mandated, the way that has to happen, correct?
It's not state mandated, that is the way we have elected to record it so that we get all this revenues correctly into the W-2.
Specific to police, it's what's required through our insurance, because particularly for workers' compensation, because they're always on duty, and and so it's a little bit different for them, and our insurance provider requires that we continue to be the employer of that. Now, in some cases, we can recoup that, some cases we can't. But to that as a line item, it's always a balancer in that if we're short on revenue, then we don't pay as much out on expense. If the revenue's higher, then we had a higher expense. It always zero balances out in the end.
Council, I think it may be appropriate as well, too, while we're on public safety officers, to reiterate that part of our discussion last week in regards to the increase in the insurance was the issue relative to some of the changes that we're seeing around us in terms of pay for public safety officers and the competition for that, and to our public safety officers that are here this evening and to the others that weren't able to attend. Please be assured that this council is cognizant of that. We have had some very, very preliminary conversation in that regard, but I anticipate that we will continue to have some. This is an item that is foremost in our attention. We want to do what is right, but we also want to do that within the system that we have now so that it is fair and equitable, not only to those people that are most affected, but to the other employees as well, too. And so as we move forward, we will have the opportunity to take advantage of not only what we have gathered from other departments, but also a review of our salaries and staffing needs as we go forward. And if we need to make adjustments mid-year or sometime during the year, we will have the opportunity to do that and take a look at that. I think that we always need to be mindful of what other departments are paying, but we also need to be mindful of the fact that we offer a certain level of benefits and benefit to the place that you live and work, and we think that is certainly worth something as well, too. One of the things that I think industry here has quickly learned is that trying to outpay each other is a race to the bottom, and for those folks that will move for 50 cents or $1 an hour, you're only going to have them until they're able to find the next job that'll pay them another 50 cents or $1 an hour, and we hope that we can expect more of our employees. And so while we don't want anybody to suffer in regards to a pay that is appropriate for the job that they hold, we will be mindful of that as we go forward, and you have our word on that. Others? Council, it's a lot to absorb. We get this every year and take a precursory look at it. We get the overview. We've had the opportunity just to spend a little time with it over this past weekend. You have got 2 weeks. I will offer that the administrator and or finance department is available for questions. You can do that in person, on the phone, and email, whatever is best to get you the answer. Some of that possibly will be shared with the entire council when appropriate, but I know that they will be glad to help you in those regards. This obviously is the first reading, and it'll come back before us again for second reading. We will take whatever time is necessary at that second meeting. And if there is something that you feel may require more time and attention than our second meeting will require, I will be glad to consider a special meeting if necessary. So with that, other questions or comments in regards to our first look at ordinance number 23, 2019?
One general question about debt service on our buildings that we're in now. Are we on the declining path or the declining side of that now?
Yeah, it fluctuates. But relative to our existing buildings, of course, we've taken on some additional debt with some new, bonding.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons you're seeing the increase.
Yeah, but I'm talking about, when we...
But that which we already have.
Right, when we structured it, we were going to have a ramp up, and then it was going to, I think, decline and level off.
Sure.
We've hit the peak. It is, trying to remember when it's actually paid off. I think it's 2023. These facilities will be paid off. We've hit the peak. It does fluctuate, but never more than $25,000, $50,000, $6,000. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. I think we had a decrease this year of $6,000. It's not big decreases, but we are below the peak now.
David, just as a reminder on the revenue side, under the interest and other, the 9% of our budget, what primarily falls under that umbrella?
For which area?
It's interest and other.
Are you looking at the pie graph?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, included in that is interest and transfers from other funds coming into the general fund. That's the biggest item in that.
As far as those pie charts are concerned, I mean, is there any piece of the pie that has moved substantially?
If you look at the history of the last 20 years, that pie is pretty consistent.
Pretty consistent.
I showed Riley the pie chart piece for personnel for expenditures, and he said it was, the percentage was too high. But I don't think it's too far off from where we've been the last few years. It's pretty correct. It's always been right around 60%.
The nature of the beast. Others?
It was about 63.2 last year.
First reading of ordinance number 23-2019, the City of Greer budget ordinance for the fiscal year 2019-2020. Any comments in that regard? Questions? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Yes. Mayor Danner?
Yes. Council, I have no items for executive session. Mr. Administrator?
Yes, sir.
Having no items in executive session, we stand adjourned.